sexy on secular sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show most likely to ask for your ASL. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight has more screen names than the devil herself. Welcome, Serafina Smith.
Howdy, everybody.
And our guest tonight is someone who really knows how to jam with the console cowboys in cyberspace, Nate Smith.
Yippee-ki-yay, Christy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for letting me get that very obscure Julia Stiles reference in there. If you're not familiar, look it up. It's great.
Honestly, thought it was a Die Hard reference, but that's okay.
Hey, it plays. It plays either way.
Good enough. Good enough. Today we're talking about web forums, which is very foreign to me, a graduate of the BBS scene back in the day. But these two seem to know a bit about it. So if you know something about it, or if you want to converse with us about something or ask us a question, call the show at 512-991-9242 or at tiny.cc/callsex.
All right, well, let's jump right into it. Nate, you're coming to us from Recovering From Religion, recoveringfromreligion.org. I'm sure we'll be saying those words in that order a lot tonight. But why don't you start us off by just telling us a little bit about the organization and what sorts of services y'all offer?
Sure. So Recovering From Religion is a group started by Dr. Daryl Ray in a Waffle House. I think,
as all good things are.
Exactly. And what we do is we help people in their journey away from religious faith. So anybody on the spectrum of doubt, we have a helpline, which is how most people come to us. You can call in, you can chat in at recoveringfromreligion.org. We have a massive library of resources for folks who come in. We have online meetups where the community just gets together. You could talk to other people on the spectrum of doubt in the same position you are. We used to have in real life meetups, but those are kind of on hold because of the plague.
For sure.
We also have weekly RfRX sessions where folks come on, usually people who are experts in their field. Come on and make a presentation for the community. So those are always really interesting. And finally, we have our online community. So it's like a chat app. It's kind of like Discord. It's all online. You can use it on your phone or your computer. And there's well over 1,000 members in there. And it's a great group where you can come and connect based on any number of topics related to recovering from religious faith.
That is way more than I knew about. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's a variety of folks. You know, I know you kind of mentioned this, but I think it's really important to point out who these services are for. I mean, believers, non-believers, questioners, diehard atheists. I mean, who's making up this community, and what does it look like in that way?
I would say that probably 80% of the members in there are somewhere in their journey. So, you know, we have maybe 20% are atheists already and have stuck around to be a part of the community and help others. And then there's the vast majority of our members are people who are anywhere from, you know, I read the Bible and it seemed fishy to me, to, you know, I've left my Mormon church and I don't believe in it anymore. And now I'm just looking for coping skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, tell us about the forums themselves, because that's where you're coming to us from, right? Like you work or moderate as a volunteer in that space?
I do, yes. I moderate the LGBTQ and sexuality channels, but there are So many channels. We've got Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, ex-Christians, ex-Jew. We've got channels for ex-clergy. We've got a channel for empowered women. It's just women, no men allowed. Dealing with family. We've got channels for practicing having difficult conversations where you can sort of role play. There's really something for everyone. There's multiple things for everyone who's anywhere on the spectrum of doubt.
Yeah. What kinds of conversations are going on here? I mean, I feel like there are only so many ways to say I don't believe in God, but I know from experience there's a lot more here than that.
There is really only one way to say that I don't believe in God. But again, a lot of these people aren't really sure yet.
Sure.
And even those that have and are somewhere along that journey, it brings up a myriad of other issues, right? Because you've still got your religious family. You've still got to deal with the fallout of changing your mind, and the fact that most people around you probably will not have done so. Right? Like we've got, I remember we had an ex-clergyman who was, he didn't know how to deal with his parishioners who approached him in Walmart. And what do you tell those people? Right?
Yeah.
It's really tough. And different faiths have different belief systems, which are silly for all sorts of kinds of reasons, which is why we've sort of divvied it up into Mormons, JWs, Christians, Catholics. But I think the most traffic that we see would be in the families, right? So dealing with family, the sexuality channels, because obviously religion has an insidious grip over our sexuality.
Sure.
And I may be a little biased, but I think we get a lot of traffic in the LGBTQ plus channel.
Yeah, I mean that tracks, right?
As a moderator, do you get involved in the conversations much, or are you just sort of like in the background?
All the time. I can't help myself. Our community is really good. Like a lot of the other members will jump on it to share their stories. But a lot of the moderators, it's not just me. It really is a back and forth. It's a conversation. None of the RfR guys come across like the hand of God. We're just another person that's just involved with the conversation. Dr. Ray drops his nuggets of wisdom. Always, right? Like it really is a back and forth conversation where everybody gets involved. It's very, very friendly. There's very little of that sort of, what you might think a moderator might do on the internet.
Yeah.
There's not so much of that. It really is just a really helpful, supportive space.
That's really interesting to know. I just from the ACA fan groups and some of these our Discord server and some of these other places on the internet, I'm definitely familiar with the Christian trolls coming in and trying to push one particular worldview that isn't sitting. But I'm also pretty familiar with the atheists that are just looking to dunk on people and stir up a lot of drama in that way. How have y'all managed to put together such a comforting community, if I can use that word?
Sure. Well, when we get the initial call or the initial chat on the helpline, the person, the agent who is taking that is in the process of subtly vetting that person as they talk to them. So as they ask them questions, get good answers, practice some street epistemology or throw out some Socratic method at them, what they're listening for is to find out if this person is an honest interlocutor, right? They're vetting that person in the process of helping them. So not everybody gets an invite to the community. We do it if we think there would be a benefit to that individual. And since we have such amazing people in our group, it's very rare that we get a troll or a snooty atheist that just wants to lord his intellect over everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
we don't get too many of those.
Very similar to our wonderful call screeners then.
Very similar. Indeed.
Well, I know that it's not y'all's job to like come up with answers for everybody, but I heard your story about a former preacher not knowing how to have those conversations, and part of my heart broke a little bit. Like I wouldn't know what to say to somebody like that. I have to wonder about the emotional toll and just what it's like moderating these sorts of conversations.
It can be pretty tough. A lot of times there is no cure, right? Like there is no fast fix to your religious father who won't talk to you, right? Or there's no fast fix for the gay kid who's been kicked out because of something that they can't control, right? So what we try to do is obviously provide a community, and we try to share coping skills, right? And that's what a lot of it comes down to, because we can't wave a magic wand and make the rest of the world make sense. Well, we can try to help it make sense for you and teach you ways that you can deal with it. And we can teach you ways to have difficult conversations, but it's never going to be easy. I mean, anybody who's ever tuned into an ACA show knows that conversations with theists are not easy.
Mm-hmm.
We actually kind of have it. We have it a little bit easier than, say, somebody on like Talk Heathen or the Atheist Experience, because the people that we get, by and large, they want to be helped, right? They want to have an honest conversation. They're already on their journey. Like I said, whether they just have that nagging little feeling in the back of their head that something's not quite right, or whether they've just read The God Delusion and are well on their way, right? We have an advantage in that people are actually interested in being helped, I think.
Yeah, and I imagine that, that kind of work can be really fulfilling even when it's challenging. And I know that the organization does a great job of looking at, volunteer burnout and being just mindful of everything there. But even without the trolls, I have to imagine that can be really draining. What are some of those challenges, some of those like other frustrations or pieces that make this difficult work?
Again, it's the fact that you can't necessarily fix everything, and we are somewhat limited in our options, and there is some burnout in that we see a lot of the same things again and again and again, right? It's fear of hell, it's religious family, and it's sexual repression. Right. Those are the big three. It's not always, but Dr. Ray can correct me, but I would say that's probably 3/4 of the calls we get is something along those lines. So it can get repetitive, but what doesn't get repetitive is the way that people react and the way that people change, in the way that you can see that you've helped them, right? That never gets old.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with the stress involved and the just the raw emotion that comes through there?
Well, I'm not an incredibly emotional man, but I have got a bit misty a couple of times, and I kind of like that, right? Because I don't. It's hard to get that kind of a reaction out of me, not because I'm trying to put it down, but it's I kind of enjoy it when I get that sort of emotional response. And again, we have so many great people in the community that are RfR volunteers that we can tag off, and we'll see that happen, right? Where someone will tag off and be like, I need to take a break. I need to step away. Can somebody please help this person? And like, it's like hands start shooting up. So the community is really great and supportive, but the volunteers really, really support each other and jump in when someone needs a break.
Yeah, and the stories just sound very, very human. I mean, it's lovely to hear you describe it the way that you are. So, I don't know if this is too much of a softball question, but I'm sincerely curious why you do this kind of work. What makes these kinds of conversations so powerful?
I mean, we're trying to help people, which is makes you feel good. But one of the things for me that I find particularly satisfying is when somebody comes in, right, with, say, internalized homophobia, right, and they feel that shame, or someone comes in who is non-binary but has never heard the term and it's like, well, one day I feel like masculine, I feel like wearing jeans and flannel, and the next day I feel like partially a woman, and I don't know. And when you have the chance to really drill home that, hey, you don't have to make a choice. Like, you can wear panties and cargo pants, you can wear a boxers underneath a skirt, and you can help them to find themselves. And then some people kind of get their fix and then off they go, right? But some of those people, they stick around, and then you get to see them as community members when the next person comes in, right? They're using the stuff that you sort of helped them with, and then they're helping somebody else with it as a peer, right? So that is just, I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And you kind of know that some of that is going to come across in their real life, right? So you've given, like, it's like throwing a pebble into the ocean. We're kind of changing the world here, right? We're really making an impact. We might not always see it, but it makes a huge impact in people's lives. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, no question. They're just incredible statistics and everything else. Sarah, let me hand it off to you.
Oh, no, I was just saying that sounds so satisfying. But, do you want to take some calls, Christy? I think we've got a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. We've got Aaron in Texas. What's up, RfR?
Yeah, this is Aaron. Hey,
Aaron.
I am actually with my wife, Andrea. We're sitting here on the couch, and we are also patients of Christy's. Wanted to go ahead and disclose that up front. But the reason why I wanted to call in this evening was I know we were talking recovering from religion. We love secular sexuality. We love ACA shows and everything that you guys do. I love recovering from religion, and I've really thought about volunteering for both. I called in once to recovering from religion and had a great conversation with a gentleman from Australia, and I'm feeling I just want to put a plug for it. What a great service that is, and because not everybody has someone that they deconvert with. Not everyone has support from other people around them. And I have my best friend and partner that I live with that we are going through this stuff together. But I feel on the topic of sexuality and having left religion, if this is not on topic for this evening, let me know. But I feel a lot of anger when it comes to my parents. And that's something that I've actually been, Christian's going to have to hear more about. But that is something that I've actually been wrestling through recently, which is I feel pissed that I was circumcised. Like, that's such a weird thing for me to say, but...
Not if you've spoken to Dr. Ray. Very, very normal thing for us all really to shake our fist at. But yeah, go on.
It feels maddening to think that, wait a minute, you mean potentially if I could feel orgasm to 100, that I was stunted down to a 90 for the rest of my life just because we wanted mine to look like dad's, or because we wanted to match the cultural norm? What a fucking stupid thing for people to do to each other. And I loved what Hitchens said when he roasted a rabbi on stage once, and he said only religion would make someone want to grab a knife and touch an infant on the genitals. There is nothing reasonable and rational that makes someone want to do that. And it's been just anger that I have been feeling recently, and I finally admitted to myself, like, yeah, man, I'm really mad about that. I'll say this. I don't mean to ramble. Please interrupt at any time. I felt very thankful. Please. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good. Carry on.
Okay. I felt very thankful that when I came out to my mother a year ago as an atheist, I felt very thankful that she said to me very early on that everything that she and Dad taught me was with love and concern for me, and that they did everything out of love, because now I've had to revisit her saying that and apply it to this stuff, and apply it to the fact that I was withheld from sex education classes when I was in middle school because I was the only one in my class, because I was a good Bible thumping Christian, and I was the kid that upheld the fundamentalist Christian banner so high that I went down in front of hundreds of people in our congregation and said, I looked at pornography and masturbated, and pray for me, and I'm responding to our invitational and all, and just how embarrassing that is, and how my parents saw this and they applauded that and thought that was good. It's gut-wrenchingly sickening for me to think about how I grew up to think about sexuality, and it feels like fresh air to get away from that. I feel like I finally understand what for my fellow former Christians and even Christian listeners out there, I understand that that what Paul said about how this seems like foolishness to those that are perishing. And I am happy to say that there's so much shit that seems like such foolishness now, and it actually feels like real life that I'm starting to experience and embrace.
Yeah, the thing that I love about the forums and the community that we're talking about here is that so many of those things become something that you realize aren't just yours. You know, for the longest time, I sincerely thought that, okay, if you stop believing in religion, then naturally you stop believing in hell, and then you don't have to be afraid of hell. So why am I still bothered by this? Why am I still losing sleep? And then I get into community and I realize that tons of former theists struggle with that idea. Or, you know, like you said, we can sit here and act like it's somehow weird to be frustrated about circumcision. But then you start to actually think about it, and you start to talk to other people, and you realize we only think that it's weird to think it's weird, or we only normalize it because of religion. And when you're actually around other free-thinking people, it does a lot to open these things up. So I'm really glad for the work that Nate and Dr. Ray and an incredible cast of other volunteers and folks are doing. I hope that you are thinking about joining them. Yeah, you know, this whole weird pandemic that you've all heard about is, you know, we all deal with it in different ways, and I've excused myself from feelings of pressure to get involved. Not that it would take pressure to get involved with anything, although getting involved with Recovering from Religion doesn't require being in a person anywhere anyway. It's just putting in time on the phone, and that and volunteer work with ACA, I definitely recognize the need for community, and I've felt that recently. That reaching out and meeting new people and friends.
things that my wife and I are going through to dig in on what actual sexual health really looks like for us isn't something that we could freely share with long-held friends that we've had. And that need to get new community is super important. And the fact that recovering from religion can be the bridge between people that are that feel like the people that feel like they can't leave a bad situation because they don't want to be without their community. Community is powerful, and it keeps people in places they shouldn't be sometimes. But I'm very, very grateful for that. But yeah, do you have any idea about, like, I would love to hear from you, Serafina, or Nate, because I hear enough about what Christy thinks on a regular basis. That's not true. But do you have any advice, anything that you can offer for how to navigate the space of anger, like how to navigate anger towards, I'm angry with my parents, but I know they did everything out of love, as twisted and as fucked up as it is, but I also know that they'll never be able to really understand the pain that they that I'm feeling. And I know that my pain is not compared to other people's pain. I don't think that I don't want to compete in a pain Olympics with other people when it comes to sexuality. I'm cis het, but I know that I didn't exactly learn healthy sexuality. Mine was okay as long as it was under these rare conditions in marriage, you know. But any advice on, like, how to deal with forgiving and how to deal with anger when the other person won't really be able to appreciate the pain?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We get quite a few people who come in looking to deal with that residual anger towards the people who indoctrinated them. And as with a lot of things in life, intent is everything, right? The people who lied to you may not have realized that what they were teaching you is untrue. They may not have known that the stereotypes and unhealthy attitudes were that, right? So that can sort of help to sort of bring that down a touch, right? Because they didn't necessarily mean it. They're still responsible for what they did. I kind of feel like you're in my head right now, because my mother and I, right? My mother and I clashed over the issue of circumcision and didn't talk for months after my son was born. I'm circumcised. I decided not to circumcise my son on the advice of our doctor, because I didn't see any reason for it. I kind of looked into the research, and I looked into her arguments that, it helps with STD rates, and you get lower rates of infections and whatnot. And I'm like, well, there has to be a reason why, the AMA and the WHO and all these physicians and health authorities don't think it's a good idea. Right. The argument that lopping off a piece of your dick somehow might prevent an infection down the line, right? Like, well, I mean, I could get brain cancer too, but we don't go chopping people's heads off, right? Like, we don't give girls mass mastectomies because breast cancer is a common killer. That's ridiculous. Right. That doesn't make any sense. And she wouldn't budge, right? She would not budge off that position. Right. No matter how much I tried to throw reason at her, right? Like you're saying, right? Like, they're never going to come around. Right. They're never going to consider your position. So eventually all you'll have to do is sort of realize, hey, if we're going to have a conversation about this, I'm willing to do it, but you have to be honest, and you have to be willing to hear me out. Otherwise, we're just going to both get angry. We're going to talk past each other. And at that point, we're just going to have to ignore the topic altogether. So intent is everything. They didn't necessarily know that what they were doing was wrong.
Yeah. And not only that, they started out as victims of the same indoctrination, just like you did. You know, that's you were this person before who, if you had continued along the way and had not encountered whatever made you doubt and started you on the path that you're on now, you know, who knows where you would be and what you would choose if you had a child. So it's, well, you know, not to take away any of their responsibility, because they're still responsible for their actions and the indoctrination that they gave, but they're also victims of the same grinding machine of propaganda and dogma that had you in its clutches for so many years.
That's a really good point, Serafina. You know, my wife and I have not had kids. We had trouble conceiving years ago, and it actually, you know, we've made peace with that and are really happy with our lives that we have now. One of the things that I keep going back to over the past several years is that I wonder if I would be questioning everything about faith and just really digging in and, you know, digging into philosophy in the past couple of years. I wonder if I would be doing all of that if I had kids that I was afraid I was going to drag to hell with me. That fear to keep people in line is effective, I think. And so you know, on the one hand, it'd be nice to be a parent someday, but on the other hand, gosh, I just I can't imagine continuing under the same cloud that I was raised in. I guess the thing that makes it a little, you know, what I wish, Nate, it sounded like with your son that you're saying that that your mother took issue, like, better circumcise him, right?
Absolutely. And she gave some of the same arguments that you did. Well, what if the other boys make fun of him? Well, who gives a shit?
Right.
A dick is a dick, right?
Weird anyways. I mean, no offense. I mean, I've had mine for a long time, and it's really weird. I mean, it's but the I guess something that really something else that really kind of burns me that's is along these lines is that my father still has not talked to me about being an atheist. And I know my mother has told him, and my mother has not brought it up to me again. And and this has been a year now. My father-in-law, we talked to him even before, and still has not brought it up a year later. And what's so bizarre to me is that I was anticipating that they would react the same way that I believe I would have reacted had I had children, which is, I will drive to where you are 11 and a half hours away, and I will sit with you and talk with you, and I will do everything I can. And so on the one hand, I wonder, like, do you believe this stuff that you taught me that was so important, that has caused so much like programming destruction in my brain? Or are you, or is it that you feel, and in a way I feel that they are scared of failing to save me? Maybe I'm trying to be as charitable as I can, but in a way it almost pisses me off that they don't want to make this an issue. I know that there's probably people listening that would be screaming like, if only my parents would stop trying, like, make it not a big deal. You know, I realize I realize how rare it is to have parents who want to continue having a relationship with you and want things to continue to be cordial and pleasant and loving even after deconverting and coming out. I get that. It's just, I'm really surprised that I kind of feel like I was a better flag bearer than they are being now, if that makes sense. Yeah. But anyways, I don't want to take up too much time this evening, and I really appreciate the time to talk, and thank you guys for everything that you're doing, both the show, Recovering from Religion. You guys are amazing.
Aaron, before you go, I mean, being the angry atheist is a phase that a lot of us go through. So just give yourself some time, man. And I went through it with my parents. I was a good religious boy too, and then I grew out of it, and I went through that same phase. And something that can really help you get over that angry phase is helping others to make that journey too. So if you want to get in with RfR, man, I mean, we could use you.
Way to go, Nate. Making it full circle. Really appreciate it. No, I will. And this is actually, I'm glad that we've had the talk, and I'm glad that Secular Sex had, I'm glad we had that you're having them on tonight, because it really does kick me in the pants again to, like, this is something I want to do, and I do want to volunteer and be a good listener. And the street epistemology training that you guys go through, or like the training that the caller that I was talking to earlier this last year, really excites me, because I love learning about how to be a better listener and to talk about these things too.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly who you were talking to. He is great.
Yeah. And he took an hour with me, and I loved how there was never the feeling of like, okay, well, I gotta go, because as Christy I'll go forever, and go past time if I feel like it's needed.
We really appreciate your call, Aaron. Thank you so much for calling in and for opening up to us like that.
Thank you, Serafina, and I'll talk to you later, Christy. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, have a great night. Thanks for giving us a call.
Good night, Aaron.
All right, bye-bye.
I think we've got time to slip in another call before we get back into the interview. But I guess, Nate, I want to give you a chance here to just kind of point out the training that Recovering from Religion offers. I mean, it's worth highlighting that Aaron said he was talking to somebody with an Australian accent, because you do have volunteers all over the world. And we were talking a little bit before the show. I went through a bit of that training, and having worked at a suicide prevention hotline, I have to say they're not terribly dissimilar. A lot of those same skills, and honestly, a lot of the like the rigor of it, I was very surprised to find from a volunteer organization. So for folks like Aaron who are curious, what can you maybe tell us?
There's quite a bit to go through. There's basically it just starts with a few videos telling you the rules, right? We don't deconvert people, we don't give advice, and we don't give personal information. It starts with really simple stuff like that, and then we'll sort of build on that, and we'll have you talk with somebody who's an experienced agent, and we'll have the mock chats and the play chats and the pretend calls, and you get to practice your street epistemology, and then you'll kind of go over it after the fact, and what could I have done better, right? Like, am I asking yes or no questions, or am I asking what, why, where, when, how questions? And it's really sort of fine-tuning your ability so that you're just actively listening and sort of walking them through the process without really having to, right? It's like walking a dog without a leash, right? Like you're not telling them where to go. You're just kind of, okay, and how does that make you feel? And what do you think we could do better there? So there's a really, and it's an ongoing process as well, right? Like they'll let you off the leash as an agent fairly early, but there is so much ongoing learning and training and practice that happens. Like after you take your first live chat, you're going to have that Australian guy that Aaron just mentioned. You're going to have him go through your chat and be like, yeah, you did good here. You could have done this. You could have done that. And actually, one thing I was supposed to mention is that we are getting so much growth in our Australian community. So many Aussies are coming in. So if you're from Australia and you want to get involved, we definitely have a need right there.
Oh,
Back to
thank
you for the weather.
Looks like Christy might be frozen on us. So let's go ahead and take another call. I really want to get to this one. We have Ursus in California. And it's not coming in. There we go. Ursus, nice to take your call.
Hi. I thought, when I heard the intro to the show today, and I heard Nate talking about his experience with RfR, I guess I also am involved in some of these communities, and some of the things that some of the interactions that you have with people in these communities from, I guess, a moderation standpoint, can be triggering and frustrating and can cause long-term, wear and tear. And I was wondering how they deal with that at RfR because obviously I don't know, and I want to continue to be involved and as helpful as I can be.
Sure, and it's gonna happen, right? Especially when you're dealing with heavy topics, right? Like people being kicked out of their homes and families being broken apart, right? This is real shit, But again, we are all volunteers and we are a team, so we are allowed to take breaks. We're allowed to pass off in the middle of conversations. For myself, what I kind of do is I try to think about what impact I might have had on that person, right? Because we don't change minds in one conversation. You're not going to do that. I try to tell myself, well, what if I planted a seed, right? Like you might have a conversation with somebody, say on the helpline, and sometimes it'll get their dander up, right? And they'll bark at you because you've challenged their views, and then they're off. And you can tend to this happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and you can tend to beat yourself up like, well, maybe I should have went down this other path. Maybe I should have talked more about what they were feeling instead of what they were thinking, right? This sort of gets back to what we were talking about earlier is this constant learning process. So I try to focus on the positive and learn from the negative.
Welcome back, Christy.
Welcome
Hey,
back, Christy.
glad to be here. Yeah, it's just a little bit more of that 2020 energy continuing to follow us.
Don't know if you missed it. We're talking to Ursus right now.
Mm-hmm.
And she was asking Nate about the how to deal with moderation and the stresses that it brings up.
Mm-hmm.
You went through the same training, right? Did you have any?
Myself? Whatever version of it was up and running, just about a year ago, actually. But only to say that when we talk about burnout, I feel like so often we think about it like a car that's just run out of gas. Like we're just totally come to a coast and then eventually stop. But I think it's a lot more useful to think about it like one particular circuit that's getting overclocked, or like a muscle that's getting used over and over and over again. So the key becomes really just identifying that like one particular part of your brain or of your life or whatever else is getting kind of overused, and just using a different set of muscles. So just good advice to anybody listening here who's like struggling with feeling kind of burned out after a year of being stuck inside, after a year of not really being able to connect with more than like the same couple of people. Those people have been kind of overclocking one particular circuit. Like if you've been stuck inside with your partner, that means that you've had one person to talk to, and you've been using that same particular muscle and skill set over and over and over again. So the key is really to just have a little bit of variety in your life, to be something of an omnivore. And, in these types of like high stress and high, very important conversations, I think it's important to just leaven that a little bit with some goofiness and silliness and a willingness to like sort of step away and watch an old episode of The Office or The Simpsons or whatever else, just so that you're using like a different muscle group, so to speak.
It's an excellent point. I often use humor as a coping skill myself, and I try to give that to others. I mean, everybody who joins the LGBTQ channel in RfR gets a personal welcome. Usually it's funny, sometimes it's serious, but usually it's funny welcome from me. So that gives me a little bit of release. And some of the regulars in there, we joke around. We were talking about bad Japanese translations the other day, and I'm trying to start a conversation about Drag Race, but apparently nobody in there watches it. So I don't know.
Hey, wait, you said this was the LGBTQ forum?
Yeah,
but the forum, but it's the queer forum, right?
It's the queer forum.
No Drag Race. All right, whatever.
No Drag Race fans. I don't get it. But yeah, Ursus, there is a lot of levity in the community as well. So not only with the RfR agents, but with the community or members as well. We joke around quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think maybe an important thing to remember is just that you're not alone, that you have that community to support you as well as supporting the people that you're helping out. You can rely on each other.
Which we do.
That's really nice.
Ursus.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Is it not working?
No, we hear you.
Okay. Thank you. It's really helpful. Obviously, I'm not in the same call position. I'm normally dealing with people who are kind of frustrated with me because I have to tell them to stop doing the thing that they were doing. But I do appreciate it because it's very easy when people are frustrated with you to lose, I guess, sight of how much they laugh with you and how much other things that they're doing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for
welcome.
giving us a call tonight.
Yeah, we really appreciate your call.
Okay, thank you. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
You too, Ursus. Bye-bye.
Well, Nate, let's talk a little bit about that particular, drag race hating forum that you're a part of, because I'm really curious about, I guess, just sort of the queer culture, the queer community in RfR. What I know we've been talking kind of broadly, and you've given us a number of examples, but what sorts of things do you find coming up, particularly in the LGBTQ forums?
Oh boy, it's I mean, the fear of hell is just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. But internalized homophobia and dealing with family is probably the most prevalent issue that we come across. That, and no one will talk about Drag Race with me. But it's great because there are so many people, like I was saying earlier, there are so many people who have those tools now and who stick around and who want to help others that, sometimes, like the last week or the week before, a young fellow came in and was asking about how do I get over this fear that I'm going to hell? I've just gotten in my first relationship. I'm 19. And how do I have a healthy relationship when in the back of my mind I'm thinking, you're wrong, this is wrong, you're going to be tortured for eternity for nothing, and while I was typing my response, 7 other people had posted links and supportive messages and links from our massive library So it's really supportive community. Everybody's really kind. I have yet to deal, like, I haven't had anybody really say anything that I had to step in as a moderator and correct in that channel. In other channels, yes, but in the queer community in RfR, we're like this, baby.
Yeah, I don't mean to project too much of my story onto all of this, but I have to imagine that honestly, just going through some of those forum titles and reading some of those posts could be incredibly transformative for a lot of folks. I've shared, my own deconversion story on air a bunch of times, and I won't bore everybody with all of those details again, but a huge part of it for me as at the time, supposedly cis-het person, a lot of why religion fell apart for me was recognizing the way that Christianity was treating the queer folks around me. And as I got out of my, town of 4,000 people and at a big university and actually started to meet out and openly queer folks and watch queer film and things like that, the whole message just kind of fell apart for me, because if one part of the Bible was just demonstrably cruel and awful, then the rest of it, was no longer sacrosanct. I wonder about even the straight folks that wander into that space and find it I don't know, reassuring in a way as they're kind of walking out of religion.
I would think that they do. Again, I'm also a moderator of the Sexuality channel, so there is some overlap there. But like, we'll have, guys coming in who have, say, a bondage fetish that they don't know how to approach their wife about, or an ex-Muslim who wants to get into the BDSM thing but feels shame about it and doesn't, he's I feel like I'm doing something awful. Like I want to be a good person. I don't want to hurt anybody, but this sort of thing kind of turns me on. And then you can teach them about things like informed consent and the fact that the BDSM community actually is very respectful. This guy, I actually pointed back to your podcast with Wrath that you had on a while ago. And I'm like, this guy will tell you what it's really like, man. Like, it's not what you're thinking, right? Like, go watch some porn, have some fun, and realize that informed adults are allowed to consent to whatever the hell they please, man. Just have a good time.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible point. And I think it just highlights the importance of being in community. When we sit down each month to talk about secular sexuality and the direction of the show and what are we doing and how well is it working and what should we be doing differently, I try to always keep in mind that a central part of our mission here is just offering some introduction to sexuality for folks who have been told for their entire lives, oftentimes, whether that's 20 or 30 or even 50 or 60 or more years beyond that their sexuality is gross. And so they don't necessarily have the experience of what decorum looks like at a strip club, or, which toys to buy at a sex shop or whatever else. And so I think a forum, an opportunity to kind of air out those questions in a way that feels safe and anonymous and honestly is moderated and protective is really beautiful work.
Thank you. Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time I've sent somebody to a secular sexuality clip, I'd have about $3.
Well, fair enough. That stacks up. Yeah. So tell me, I guess, a little bit about the need here. We're talking about it in all of these different directions. Folks who are maybe being unleashed and introduced to their sexuality for the first time. Folks who are maybe still struggling with some of the vestiges of religion and everything else. But I guess I'm really curious to know, where the hurt is, or what kinds of stories you're seeing as people are finding a little bit of healing.
I mean, the hurt is huge, right? Like I often say, as people on the LGBTQ spectrum, we get the rare joy of having to come out to people around us twice, which is just great. So not only, you know, do you have to deal with the fact that, hey, mom, remember when I told you that I like dicks? Well, guess what? I don't think God's real either. You know, so it can be a real challenge.
It's just like you feared.
Yeah, that's right. The worst has come to pass. Satan turned me gay, and now I don't believe in God or Satan anymore. So yeah, it's the need is great, and you know the thing is with I don't want to put this the wrong way, but atheists can hide, right? They don't necessarily have to tell anybody, but somebody who's on the spectrum who presents as a gay man or as a lesbian woman or as trans, right? They don't always have the option to hide that, right? They have to confront it. It doesn't matter if they're 16 and ready to do it or not. They have to do it, and then they have to deal with the fallout from their religious family. You know, it can be really tough. I fortunately didn't have that problem when I was that age. I was in the closet well into my 20s. But it is tough for some of these people to have to deal with two things that could potentially make their family hate them. It's the need is great. So, especially in the LGBTQ forums there, I try to keep that one on my phone so I can catch everybody who comes into it.
Yeah, I'm feeling that.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's people coming in here who don't even know what their identity is. Like, they know that they're not cishet. They may not know what cisgender hetero means, but they know that something's different, and they feel bad about it because they were taught to feel bad about it. And then we can say, hey, there are other people like you. There are other people that feel like you do. And here's 3 that are willing to talk to you right now that were in your position or are in the process of going through what you're going through, right? Like, I have blind spots, right? I don't know everything. But what's great about this community is that these other people are willing to step in no matter what part of the journey they're at, and they're willing to sort of to help others and commiserate with each other, even if there isn't an easy answer to deal with transphobic parents. At least you can talk to somebody else who's going through the same thing, and that can be very cathartic.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all making that kind of space and working through all that. Sarah, before we jump back onto the phones, did you have any other questions here?
No, I'm mostly just sort of listening to Nate and thinking how great it would have been to have that sort of resource myself.
No question.
Because there's no hiding. There's just
same. Yeah. It can be tough to hide, and it's great that now in the information age, somebody can come on who's 16. You have to be 16 to use it, but you can come on, and you know, like for gay kids, what real sex ed do they have, right? Like, even if you do get sex ed in high school, you don't get gay sex ed, right? You don't get trans sex ed, right? And we can actually come in here and have an adult conversation in a safe space, and you can actually learn something and, you know, be better off for it. That's pretty unique to RfR, I think.
It's a big deal. It's amazing.
Huge deal. For sure.
Well, we do have a caller here. We have David from North Carolina wanting to talk to us. David, you're on the line.
Hello. I want to say first solidarity to the first caller because I feel anger over circumcision as well. But I really called in to talk about the guilt that religion gave me about losing my virginity before marriage. I lost my religion about the age of 15 and lost my virginity about the age of 19, and I still felt guilty and felt like I was going to hell. So it doesn't disappear very quickly sometimes.
How did that affect you?
Well, I got over it a few years later, but for the relationship that I was in, it kind of made things difficult because I didn't really feel comfortable having sex all that much with the woman that I was with because I felt guilty almost every time I did it. So she was also a virgin when we lost our virginity to each other. So.
So was she experiencing the same sort of thing?
I didn't ask, but I kind of think so. But I had the unfortunate experience of just crying that first night. We didn't share a room. We were in college, but it was quite odd that even that many years after losing my religion, losing my virginity was kind of a big deal because of the guilt. And it was all based in, I thought I was going to go to hell still. Even though I didn't believe in a God and I didn't believe in Satan at that time, I still believed that I might go to hell. And that was a horrible feeling. I don't know why people push that on their kids.
Yeah, and it's a very powerful force. Just classical conditioning and the associations that our bodies can make when we kind of pair our sexuality or specifically the experience of orgasm with incredible amounts of shame and guilt. That can form a bit of a connection, and it can take a really long time to get past that, particularly if you are growing up and you are told not to masturbate and you shouldn't masturbate and you definitely shouldn't masturbate, but also you are 12, 13, 14, 15 years old and you're gonna masturbate. And then you do. And all of a sudden, after that like rush of excitement and hormones and everything else has faded, you're left with this incredible amount of shame and guilt. And our bodies can begin to really associate the two and believe that our sexuality writ large under any circumstances is wrong. Because even if we're able to convince ourselves and even if we're able to believe that, oh, okay, in the context of marriage or whatever else, this is somehow okay, our bodies don't know that. You know, they're not keyed in. Our bodies aren't reading the Bible in the same ways that we are. And so I imagine that traumatic experience is something that has lingered in your body in a lot of ways. How have you managed to walk away from that experience or from that feeling?
Well, when I came to the realization that hell was not likely to exist a couple of years later, I'm now 45, so I've grown a bit since then. But it was just getting past the point of thinking about hell as something that could be real. That got me past any guilt I felt about it. And, I've enjoyed sex thoroughly since.
Glad to hear it.
And it's, yeah. And I've had the pleasure of coming out to my folks about 3 different things. My sexuality, or pansexual, my atheism, and my BDSM stuff.
Ah, the hat trick.
So-
Congratulations.
Ah.
Very few people hit the Triple Crown, so congratulations, and not to be too glib about it, because I'm sorry that you've had those experiences. I mean, that sounds like a miserable pain, and I stand with you in kind of wondering, like, how did we get here? How did we normalize this to this extent, even after all of the signs? Even after our bodies were screaming no and we kept going, just as a society, we have really, I mean, to say that we deified it would be very literal and accurate. We have taken these ideas and made them more important than human beings. And that is a terrible sadness.
Yeah, and I felt terribly guilty and cried often when I did have masturbation sessions before losing my virginity, because I was still religious at the time. I was in my early teens when that started, and I was still Christian at that point. And I confessed to it, as Nate was saying, in church. Luckily, my folks didn't go to that church. I was the only one in the family going to church at that point. But it was rather embarrassing to do so. And then I found out later that the pastor was cheating with about 3 members of the congregation on his wife. So that kind of made me feel better. The doctrines that are taught within the churches is just, for lack of a better word, abuse.
Mm-hmm. That word feels pretty appropriate here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you on abuse. Yep.
Yeah. And for me, as I said, getting past it simply came with the realization that hell wasn't likely to exist. So for anybody out there who's listening, if you get to that point, you may just find that the guilt disappears. But it was that point for me.
Sure. That's, and even beyond that, right? I'm glad that you were eventually able to move beyond your fear of hell. But one of the things, like, I've had this come up in RfR too, is people feeling shame for masturbation or premarital sex. And one of the things that can help, after you deal with the feelings, you have to deal with what they're feeling first. But once you can get past that a little bit and start to sort of examine, well, what are these rules, right? What does the Bible say about marriage, right? The only messages about premarital sex that we have really come from the letters of Paul. And what else did Paul say? Paul also told slaves to obey their masters and told women to be silent in churches, and that they shouldn't have authority over men. So fuck Paul. I don't really care what Paul thinks, right? And if you want to go back to the Old Testament, we're talking rape as a property crime. We're talking, marriage between a prisoner of war and their conqueror. Like, these are, if you're going to go by this awful book as your standard of rules, you can't just pick the ones that suit what you want to be true, right? You can't just pick and choose. It's either all right or it's all bullshit, and it's clearly not all right.
And unfortunately, it does get picked for the parts that they like.
Absolutely, it
several
does.
denominations.
Well, once you start to sort of pick that apart, and I'm glad that you did, David. I'm glad you were able to pick that apart. But once you do start to kind of pick that apart, the rest of it sort of falls like a bunch of dominoes. So I'm glad you called in to help some other people sort of develop some of those coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I hadn't gotten to the point where I couldn't believe that hell wasn't likely, I probably still would feel guilty, or at least some little tinge of fear.
Sure.
But it's
I mean,
it's
Pascal's wager makes sense up until the point where you realize it really doesn't. But it's pretty terrifying on its face, and it does take a little bit of introspection, which is very much against the rules. So you're having to really go out on a limb in order to get to that point, and we're so glad that you did, and that you gave us a call to help share some of that story with us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the call, and hope you guys have a good
really
night.
Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. You too.
I don't. Yep. Bye.
Well, Sarah, we're getting a little long considering the line of calls that I see, but I think we can sneak in at least one, maybe even two more. Sophie's choice. Where do you want to start or go next?
Let's try Jason in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, hey, you're on the line with us.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing?
Hey, doing all right.
Okay, so I'll make it quick. I'm an atheist. I'm a straight male, and I'm involved in combat sports. A very close friend of mine who, I've sparred with, fought with for a long time. She just recently came out as trans, about 18 months ago, hormone therapy. Due to that, she lost a lot of family, a lot of friends, and dealing with some hard shit. My main concern is how do I relate? Like, what can I do as a straight male to, I don't know, try to be there for them? You see what I'm saying? Like, I really love this person very, very much, and I also don't want to accidentally say some fucked up shit. So I figured I'd call you guys and ask. Y'all have given me pretty good advice before in the past. So, what would y'all say?
Well, I mean, you're starting off good. You're using the right pronouns for her, and I like that. But just be in her corner. If anyone tries to, get on her about her transition or try to tell her that she shouldn't be where she is, anything like that, just be there to back her up is the biggest thing for me, because having people in my life that I know will have my back if someone tries to get some sort of transphobic bullshit pointed at me is something that has made every bit of difference in my life.
Okay. Would you guys know of any, as far as maybe resources for, because I know there's transgender and MMA was an issue for a while. And would you guys know of any resources that I can point her towards? Maybe people to talk to as far as RfR or something along those lines?
Absolutely. If she wants to call or chat into RfR, this actually came up today, oddly enough. So it's still pretty fresh. But yeah, if she wants to call in or chat in, we can point her to a wealth of resources. And I'm just curious, do you still spar with your friend?
Okay, so she took a little bit of time off. She's been going through hormone therapy, but we hung out tonight. We hung out tonight. So she's been kind of reclusing from people, but recently it started coming out to the gyms again. Luckily, in the city that I live in, we have a pretty open LGBTQ community, and I grew up in tattoo shops, so for me it's normal, So I don't care, never care. But for a lot of other people, they care because we also have a very big Christian community, and a lot of the people that have turned their back on her are very highly Christian. So a lot of her community has been really fucking shaken up, So we're going to start moving again, probably a little more now that she's back kind of in the public eye. And she's also been very like inspirationally open towards people about things. I mean, it's inspiring to me, you know. So just as somebody to have the, I was going to say the balls, but to have the courage to do that is pretty fucking phenomenal. So yeah, you see, I'm trying really hard. I'm trying so hard to say the proper things and be conscientious, you know, and not be me. But so you said RfR will have some good resources for that. And as far as y'all know anything about, are y'all interacting with any transgender fighters, or because I know again that's something that people have been discussing a lot lately.
Yeah, the name escapes me, but there was one that we were talking about earlier today. That wasn't in the RfR. That was actually in the ACA's Discord. Are you on Discord, Jason?
Yeah. Yes, I am. I go in there every once in a while. I was talking about.
Yeah. Get it.
That's kind of off topic.
Get in the ACA Discord. We were actually just talking about this today, and there's people in there who are trans who can help you out a lot better than I can.
Man, I'm thinking of names. I'm thinking of names. I'm sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I'm thinking of people right now. You're 100% correct. People I talk to decently regularly. Okay, cool, badass.
And just real quickly, I want to throw out there for our podcast folks, tiny.cc/ACA Discord. It's a really incredible community. And, just on top of everything that we're talking about here, especially during this bullshit year, it's super important to be just plugged in with other folks, and that's how you get a little bit more comfortable around these things. Jason, I think that's my biggest piece of advice to you. Not that you read a bunch of books and become like an expert in gender studies. I mean, that's great. Everybody should do that, and I definitely recommend it to you. But more importantly, I think when it comes to just feeling comfortable around your language and things like that, is just having opportunities to interact with trans folks, whether that is, directly with a human person, as is, really the ideal, but also through art and culture. I mean, watching trans film is a great way to become just a little bit more comfortable or a little bit more aware of sort of the nuances of language. We can all get out our grammar books and try to like sort through all of this stuff. But when it comes to just talking like a human being to another human person, the best way to learn how to do that is just to do that, or to participate or watch other people do that. And so, watch trans film, listen to podcasts with trans voices and things along those lines, to just become a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more familiar with some of maybe the cadences of how these conversations can go.
Okay. I really appreciate that. And just, I'll let you guys go. I know y'all are busy, but what we're doing is pretty neat. We're doing a tattoo sleeve of old traditional style tattoos, but they're all trans related. So we planned that out tonight. So that's something that's really neat, that we're doing through the transition. We're kind of reappropriating, if that's a proper word, stuff that was originally very masculine, and we're just taking it over and making it for her. You see what I'm saying? So that's
gorgeous.
Really neat to see her roles.
Yeah, I love that. And if she happens to be open to it, no pressure whatsoever, jump onto the Secular Sexuality Facebook fan group, or even just email us a picture. We're sex@atheist-community.org. I would love to see that work as it gets done, should she be interested in sharing.
I will let her know, and I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all right. We got a delay. It happens.
Well, I'm just saying she's been very, very excited about being open towards everybody. Kind of a big fuck you to everybody, which is beautiful. So I wouldn't be surprised if she's down. But I won't take up y'all's time anymore. I really appreciate y'all. Y'all are fucking awesome. So have a good night.
Hey, thanks so much.
As a trans woman who loves combat sports, thank you so much for your call. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
No
I want to see that ink.
No problem. Love you guys. Oh, yeah, I'll show it. I'll be on the ACD here later. All right. Y'all take care.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. We're running a little bit long, but I think we can
Sure.
sneak in one more. You want to give that a try?
All right, let's get Matthew in here. Matthew from Texas. We're down to the wire, but we'd love to hear from you.
Well, great. I'll keep it quick. I just wanted to see, first of all, how to get involved with recovering from religion. And secondly, I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness myself. And I just was curious what kind of need there is specifically for Jehovah's Witnesses who are starting to wake up, or maybe who have woken up.
Funny you should ask that, Matthew. Actually, we were canvassing our agents just a few days ago for more moderators in the Ex-JW channel. So absolutely, there is a need for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. If you want to get involved, you can go to recoveringfromreligion.org, and there is an actual form there that you can click, and fill out some information. We'll give you a call. There's an interview process that you go through and some training and whatnot. But we're pretty cool people. We don't make it too hard on you. But yeah, there absolutely is a need for ex-JWs. Absolutely. And JWs being the how do I say this? Them being the exclusive sort of exclusionary toxic cult that they are. Often it takes somebody who's been through the same thing that can really relate to really be able to help. So we could definitely use your hand, for sure.
Well, I'm absolutely more than happy to do what I can. And to any Jehovah's Witnesses who are waking up, believe it or not, you are not alone. Not just in terms of those of us who have woken up from the cult, but believe it or not, most fundamentalists actually can relate. That was one of the things that was very surprising to me as I was going through my own process, and I read Marlene Winnell's book. You are truly not alone. There are many people who do understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just real quickly for folks listening, the book he's talking about is called Leaving the Fold. We've talked about it on this show before. It's a incredible piece of work, and I'll make sure to have a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Well, thank you all very much for taking my call, and keep up the great work.
I'm gonna be watching for you, Matthew.
All right.
Come in. Follow through. Come in. We could use your help, buddy.
All right. I'll probably do that tonight, actually.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sweet. Have a good night, Matthew.
Thanks so much. Yeah, well, Sarah, I don't know how you're feeling, but it's just really beautiful to kind of be a part of this, to be able to offer a little bit of a spotlight. And honestly, with all of the calls tonight, is felt very much like a former theist helping former theist kind of situation. And as we're talking about community and everything else, I'm just really excited to be able to kind of create this space and to offer a platform for these conversations.
Yeah, it's really moving, and it really puts into light just how much need there is for this.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nate, I heard you kind of walk people through how they can get started. That website, again, I mean, we're directing folks towards recoveringfromreligion.org. And to get started, where do people click? Where do people go?
You're just going to want to go to the website. You can click down. There's a little volunteer link. You can also just come in on the chat line. Love that picture. You could just come in on the chat line and you could just talk to folks, and we'll steer you in the right direction and get your email. But I mean, the ACA is all about positive atheism, and it doesn't get any more positive than what Recovering from Religion does, right? So we appreciate, like, most of the traffic we get, a lot of the traffic we get is from the ACA. So you guys are our brothers. We really appreciate the help, and anybody who's involved with who wants to get involved with positive atheism and actually helping people who are in that journey, creating more atheists, making a more secular, evidence-based, sensible world, you can get involved. We would love to have you.
Mm-hmm. Well, before I hand it over to Sarah to wrap us up for the night, I guess I'm curious for anybody watching, if, the idea of going through the training process and jumping in as a volunteer is a little bit too intimidating or is maybe just more time consuming than folks have opportunity for. How can folks watching participate or just be part of the solution here?
Were you asking me? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can share RfR, you can share ACA links, you can talk about it. If you don't want to get involved on a volunteer level, really just spreading the word and being out there, right? And not hiding. I mean, you don't have to wear your atheism on your sleeve and announce it when you walk into a room, but don't be afraid to mention it to people and to talk to people and to demonstrate that, hey, I'm just like you, right? Like, I stopped to help you change a flat tire. I'll pay for your chocolate bar at the supermarket when you run a bit short, right? Like, we're if anything, we're more altruistic than the fundies out there. So make that known, right? Like, live it.
Yeah. Well said. With that, Sarah, you want to kind of walk us out tonight?
Oh yeah. Before we go anywhere, I want to give a big shout out to our crew for making this. Oh, look at them. They're so beautiful. Making it all possible over there.
Uh-huh.
Oh, showing off. Look at that.
Oh, beautiful. Loves it.
Hashtag crew cat.
Kitty.
Oh, thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you'll join us in various ways. There's the Secular Sexuality fan group on Facebook, where you can go and talk with like-minded folks about the show and about topics related. We've got merch at bit.ly/AEN merch for Secular Sexuality. And honestly, thank you all so much for just tuning in and for being a part of this experience for us.
Mm-hmm. Fair to say. Well, with that, I know that we all know and love Dr. Daryl Ray, who helped put this show together, as well as Recovering from Religion, as well as the Secular Therapy Project, as well as all of his books. I mean, God damn it, Daryl. But in addition to all of that, he wrote this tagline. I hope y'all will all join me in as we walk out for the night, and remind everybody listening to go out and give themselves a big old orgasm. Or better yet,
give
somebody else one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.